This is how you make billions of dollars in less than 3 years with no college degree, no venture capital funding, and no famous investors. This is the story of how Denmark became the new pharma hub and how the entire country got wealthy in just a few years. It all started when some scientists in Denmark created a way to make cancer drugs out of Lego parts. It sounds crazy, but it worked. They were able to create better medicines for less money, which made people healthier and richer. But this created a huge problem. For decades, the pharma industry has been the most profitable industry in the world. You know, they say healthcare is a human right, not a for-profit business. But when it comes to life-saving drugs, the pharma industry doesn't care about rights. All they care about is profits. That's why in the US, insulin, which was discovered over 100 years ago, still costs $346 for a vial. And if you can't pay that, you're just out of luck. That's why one of the biggest scams in America today is selling plasma so you can get free cancer treatment. Some people even call pharma companies evil, greedy parasites. But back in Copenhagen, a group of scientists had just cracked the code to making cancer drugs cheaper. But there was a big problem. There weren't any rich investors in Denmark. That's because Denmark isn't like the US or China where a bunch of nerds with zero life experience become insanely rich. In Denmark, only 3 people have ever become billionaires. You know why? Because their whole system is designed to stop you from getting rich. But now they needed to figure out how to make billions of dollars without getting rich themselves. In Denmark, the government owns 55% of the country's biggest bank, and 2/3 of all Danish companies are owned by the government. So in order to get permission to do anything, they needed permission from the government. But here's the thing. Denmark has one of the best governments in the world. They don't do shady stuff and waste money. They use taxpayers' money responsibly. And if you want to build something cool, they will help you. In 2017, the scientists in Copenhagen reached out to the Danish government for help. They said, "Hey, we just invented a way to make medicines out of Lego parts. We think this could save millions of lives, but we need your help to build a company." And the Danish government was like, "Sweet, let's do it." With the government's help, they created a new company called biotech. The scientists didn't get rich, but they did get a nice little payout. Now, you might be wondering what the fuck does Lego have to do with cancer treatments? Well, Lego bricks are made out of a material called polypropylene. And guess what? So is polypropylene used in many medical devices because it's cheap and works well. And that means there are already machines everywhere that can make And the best part is, polypropylene is easy to work with. Scientists can just add different molecules to it to create new materials with different properties. So they decided to create a new molecule called HALO, which stands for Happy Assembling Lego Parts Together. When the Danish scientists first presented their invention to the world, no one cared. No one thought it was that big of a deal. But then they went to an event called the European Society for Medical Oncology, where they showed off how their Lego medicine could treat 5 types of cancer. Suddenly, everyone cared. They had scientists, doctors, investors, and government officials crowding around them asking, "How can we make this happen?" This was beyond their wildest dreams. The New York Times wrote an article about them. Investors started calling them, and the value of their company exploded. Just a few months after presenting at the conference, their company went public with a market cap of $2.8 billion. This was bigger than all the other Danish companies combined. For a moment, they were the most valuable company in Denmark. So how did they do it? They managed to turn a brick that costs 15 cents into a drug that costs $1,000. But there's more to the story. Here's the thing. Making drugs out of Lego bricks isn't really about the technology. It's about how they organized things. You see, for decades, making cancer drugs was extremely complicated. It required multiple steps and multiple companies. First, you need someone who can design the drug. Then you need someone who can test the drug. Then you need someone who can produce the drug. Then you need someone who can ship the drug. And then you need someone who can sell the drug. But that meant that each step in the process added extra cost and extra time. If they could cut out middlemen and streamline the process, they could make better drugs for less money. And that's exactly what these guys did. They brought all the production in-house. They hired chemists, biologists, and doctors under one roof. They made it possible for the people developing the drugs to talk directly to the people testing the drugs. They even made their data open to the public, like they published all their research online for free. They wanted to speed up the process of making better drugs. One reporter described it perfectly. He said, "They don't seek to protect their inventions with patents, but instead work to make the results of their research freely available to others in the hope that more people will follow their example." Now, that's rare in the pharma industry. Usually, if you come up with a better way to make drugs, you patent it and try to make as much money as possible off of it. But these guys wanted to do things differently. They wanted to make the world a better place. But it's not that simple. Making life-saving drugs isn't just about inventing something cool. It's also about making sure it gets to the people who need it. But here's the thing. More than half the world's medicines end up in landfills. People simply don't take them. One reason is that some medicines have side effects, but the real reason is that it's too expensive. There are 45 million people in the US who need medicine but can't afford it. And in other countries, it's even worse. In Kenya, 68% of people who need medicine can't afford it. That's why there are villages full of kids who have never seen a doctor. But when the people behind Lively got wind of this, they worry like we can fix that too. To solve the problem of people not taking medicine, they created a new type of pill. They wanted to create a pill that would automatically dissolve in your stomach. But in order to do that, they needed to figure out how to control the release of a drug inside your body. To do that, they looked to nature. They studied how the body of a pufferfish releases toxins, and they realized they could make a gel that would release drugs slowly over time. So they patented their gel and called it COLO, which stands for Controlled Release of Active Substances. Now, this wasn't some crazy scientific breakthrough. They didn't discover anything new. They just took an idea from nature and applied it in a new way. But the way they organized everything was brilliant. They developed a new platform that made it easy to mass-produce pills that dissolve automatically. They delivered the right amount of medicine directly to your bloodstream, which meant patients didn't have to worry about taking their medicine every day. They could simply take one pill once a week and be covered for the entire week. Here's the thing. Sticking to a medicine routine is hard. People forget to take their medicine. Sometimes they run out of medicine. Sometimes they can't afford to go to the pharmacy. But this solved all those problems. The pill would dissolve in your stomach and release the perfect dose of medicine directly into your bloodstream. And the best part is, they could dissolve the pill so quickly that it would have no taste. That meant kids could take the pill without crying. That meant old people wouldn't spit it out. That meant people wouldn't throw it away. Once again, this wasn't some crazy scientific breakthrough. It wasn't some genius idea. It was simply a smart idea, executed really well. But here's where things get interesting. You see, these guys didn't invent some magical new technology. They didn't discover a new element. They didn't create some fancy AI. They just organized things really well. And that led to some pretty amazing side effects. They created a billion-dollar company that was worth more than all the other Danish companies combined. They created a new pharma hub in Denmark. In fact, today, 4 of the top 10 biopharmaceutical companies in Europe are based in Denmark. And the Danish government got so much tax revenue they're basically paying off their debt from COVID. So, this raises the question, is Denmark lucky, or is there something else going on here? Well, there are 2 lessons we can learn from Denmark. Lesson no uno. Sometimes you don't need fancy tech to make billions of dollars. Sometimes organizing things really well is enough. Lesson no dos. There's a lot of money to be made in healthcare. There's no shortage of money. The problem is, it's not getting to the people who need it. If you look at the history of the world, there are so many examples of people creating massive wealth by simply connecting people to what they want. Uber connects people to cars. Airbnb connects people to homes. Alibaba connects people to products. Amazon connects people to products. Visa connects people to money. PayPal connects people to money. Bitcoin connects people to money. In fact, some of the most valuable companies in the world literally do nothing but move money around. But what about medicine? Why isn't there an easy way to connect people to medicine? Well, there is. It's called MedLife, and it's based in India. Medane helps poor people get access to life-saving drugs for pennies on the dollar. You know, the same way Uber connects you with drivers. The same way Amazon connects you with products. The same way PayPal connects you with money. MedLife connects you with drugs. There are 50 million people in the world who need medicine but can't afford it. Anterior 10 billion people in the world who have access to medicine. If we can connect just 1% of those 10 billion people to the 50 million people who need medicine, we can generate $5 trillion in revenue. And that's just the beginning. If we can leverage technology to organize all of this, we can change the world for the better while making trillions of dollars. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, but otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.